Órale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is your host, Jorge Martin. Familia. First off, I want to make sure you're getting on our Familia FFB YouTube page. Come on, because hit the like, hit subscribe, because you know what? We've got, this is a great episode that you're going to have. I already know it because, you know, my man here is Familia. He is Familia true and true. But we're going to be getting a lot more great content coming up. So hit that like. If you're new to us, hit that like, hit that subscribe, set those notifications because we're also going to be doing our NFL Insider series. Lots of great content coming up on there. But yes, you know, Familia, you know, there's always things. There's an amigo and then there's a compadre, which is kind of like the next tier, you know. So, you know, we love tiers in fantasy football. So when you're a compadre, you're a tier. Graham Barfield is definitely a compadre. You know, we met 3 years ago through our other compadre, Dr. Porras, and I mean, seriously, it's just been Familia ever since. I love it when we send each other text messages from baseball stadiums, you know, Dodger Stadium or Coors Field, you know, whatever game we're seeing, and it's good times. It's good times. But hey, you know what? He's also one of the great fantasy minds. He's one of the most humble people, but one of the great fantasy minds out there. And when it comes to really grinding, you know, running backs coming in and also analytics and breaking down underdog. Gosh, I mean, DFS, everything. He is el hombre. Bring it on. Graham Barfield. Bienvenido, mi amigo.
I appreciate that, man. It's always good to talk to you. Always good to chop it up. I would never tell Edwin this to his face, but he's truly a compadre, top tier friend as well. No, I'm of course joking. I love Edwin, and your show with him has been great. I was just telling you before the show, you guys, you know, are so easy to listen to, and I always love doing the show with you because you're so easy to talk to. So it's finally good to chop it up with you, man. Talk some running backs, talk some fantasy. We'll try to keep baseball to a minimum, I guess, today.
It always has to come in. So
hey, man, we do need to get you out here. We need to get you out here with Edwin. Go see a game in Coors. I know they stink, but hey, you know, Coors is one of the best ballparks in MLB.
I mean, great. I mean, it's in one of the great center, you know, that area that it's in
Perfect.
is just phenomenal. And then just, I mean, the ballpark itself. And I mean, you know, you're going to see runs when you see there. So why not? Yeah. So that is on the bucket list to get out there for, you know, kind of like a weekend series or something with you guys. So, but yes. Love to see that. Oh, by the way, make sure you're following Graham at Graham Barfield on Twitter, and also his great work at Fantasy Points, fantasypoints.com. Just some of the Fantasy Points data suite. You know, you guys heard me talk about it last week with when Brett Whitefield came on. It is just next level. So many people. I learned so much from being in there. So, got it. I just love it. But Yards Created is back, mi amigo. So, you know, he brought it back. How great is it to have it back this year after last year?
Yeah, it was like missing a limb. That's kind of how I felt about it, not doing it for about a year. Just had to take the year off 2 years ago, but this past year it was just great to get back to it and kind of look at these players with a fresh set of eyes. I don't typically watch a whole lot of college football other than just like, you know, the big games on Saturday. And even then it's like loosely. So I really do, after the NFL season comes in, I just try to, you know, come in with like a completely unbiased eye, obviously knowing, you know, some of these players for years, but, you know, really not really studying them and sitting down and studying them. So it was good to kind of have like, you know, an especially fresh set of eyes this time around to watch these games. And, you know, all these teams now are going to committee backfields, not just in the NFL, but in college too. So it definitely is like kind of made the scouting and I guess just watching process a little harder. And in that sense, there's just fewer players that are getting 200 carries every season in college. But still, I mean, this is, you know, even though this was kind of like a lackluster class, the top 5 is okay. And then after that's not great. It was certainly great to get back just grinding and charting players once again. And there's 2 or 3 players I really am excited about in this class. I'm excited to talk to you about today.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about a couple guys. So I love it. I can't wait to chop it up. But I wanted to ask a little bit about before we get into it. You've been doing so much stuff on best ball, especially underdog. Yeah. When you know, with the approach that you're taking right now, I mean, it's, you know, almost 3 months till the season starts. When you're looking at this one right now, are you looking more zero or hero RB early on?
So right now, I mean, I wrote a 12,000 word article, basically like a manifesto on like underdog draft guide and underdog draft strategy, going through roster construction, strategy, stuff like that. And I don't think anybody is really going running back heavy this year. I think
Mm-mm.
most people are, if they're taking any running backs, they're going to take one in the first 3 rounds. Both strategies over the last 3 years, zero RB and hero RB, have been like proven winning strategies, just like
Yeah.
positive EV. Every single year you're going to have, obviously built around stud wide receivers first and foremost, but you're mostly trying to fill the flex spot. This year, I think the call is to get basically one if you can. I love taking
Yeah.
Devon Achane in the 3rd round. When
Oh,
Achane slips
yes.
into the 3rd, it's hard not to click that because he has such crazy spiked week potential. I do like Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd round again this year. That was a little bit of a snake bitten thing last season, but hey, he's the same price as he was last year. I do like building around one hero running back. I've been doing that for a long time, but it's just so easy to go zero RB this year, Jorge. Like,
Oh my
it
God.
truly is.
Yes.
I mean, we've got, just historic RB prices at a low. I mean, I was looking at this. If you compare the last, this year to the last 2 previous years, the RB20 is going like 25 spots later by ADP on Underdog. So,
Yeah.
every RB2 is on sale, and it's just kind of easy to get into those molds. I just don't think that many people are actually doing it. So zero RB still makes so many people uncomfortable.
You know what? I think even the people who are, long time. I mean, who are very much zealots. I think there is that comfort zone. If you've been playing a long enough time, I think it's hard to kind of break away from that strategy. You kind of need them as like your secure, like that Linus blanket. But
Yeah.
it's funny. Like on the builds that I've done, where I've gone like running receiver to start with. I don't mind what I'm looking at when it comes time to start filling up some of those running backs. I don't mind that dead zone. It's
Yeah. The dead zone doesn't exist on Underdog anymore. That was like, the season 2 years ago where we took Mike Davis in the 5th round.
right.
That just does not exist anymore. Those are now filled with wide receiver 3s. We're pushing up some tight ends a little bit in that spot, like Dalton Kincaid and some, Kyle Pitts, once again, based on projection. Those running backs are just on sale. David Montgomery's a 7th round pick again this year after scoring double-digit touchdowns. So, I mean, you can just wait and draft your RB2 spot even later this year. That's really what I've been advising.
That's so crazy to see those guys going so late. And I mean, Aaron Jones is a deal. And it's like people weren't paying attention to what happened during the close of the season and the playoffs. And it's I mean. And actually it feels like when you're in that zone where those guys are falling down, it does feel like the receivers, like the elite receivers, are picked clean, and even the guys who could like come out of nowhere. I mean, we're not expecting Puka Nacua to happen again, but
yeah,
I think that's
the underdog and best ball markets have just like completely detached from like your standard ESPN and like sleeper leagues where you start just like 2 receivers.
right.
It's because we start that additional receiver in best ball on DraftKings. On Underdog, you have to start 3 at least, and you have a flex spot that you want to fill with typically a receiver. But like on ESPN and sleeper, those running backs that we were talking about, like Kamara, like Joe Mixon, that are like on sale. Aaron Jones is on sale on Underdog and best ball. Those guys are going in their typical like round 3, round 4 pockets on ESPN, and it's because obviously we're drafting structurally different. But it's interesting to see, when you take away that 3rd receiver spot, how much it really does prop up the projected, value of those RB2s. It's just on Underdog, man, how many drafts have you done where, you'll have a running back drop 10 or 12 spots past ADP, and how many times does that happen for a receiver? It's like very, very, very rarely will a receiver drop 10 to 12 spots past ADP. You can usually get like at least one running back that goes 8 spots past ADP. It just very rarely happens for a receiver in that instance. So it's just been so interesting to kind of, dip my toes. Now it's like, middle of June, start looking at ESPN and sleeper redraft stuff. Just like, wow, these are early mock drafts where people don't have money on the line, but they've completely detached best ball and redraft from, there's two separate worlds now.
It's so true, because I sat in on I did a sleeper mock draft with my friend Mauricio Gutierrez from Estadio Fantasy, and I knew the room in there was sharp because I'd played in leagues with them, but yeah, I couldn't believe how some people were getting pushed down. The quarterbacks were really pushed down in that one. So,
well, that's
really
typical of industry drafts. I think in
Yeah.
general, those quarterbacks kind of get pushed down. But Derrick Henry, he's going off the board in the mid second round at the earliest in the ESPN leagues. I guarantee you're going to see that all summer. But he's going in the third and underdog. Late second in DraftKings, early third on DraftKings. So it's just, it's really interesting to see the draft strategies starting to completely converge, but also like, the ADP market starting to completely converge.
Oh, man. How are you tackling quarterback?
Quarterback is like a means to an end for best ball to me. Like if I'm drafting Jamar Chase at 4, I'm going to bump up Joe Burrow heavily. If I draft Tyreek Hill at 3, I'm going to bump up Tua heavily. There's like 3 or 4 quarterbacks every year where I think you can just draft them independent of the receivers, like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson is one of those this year, and Jaden Daniels is one of those this year. Those guys just have so much like independent rushing upside that I don't have to have one of their receivers early to kind of stack them up. I can just, have them, at ADP or after ADP, and then grab one of the receivers late, or just keep them because I just think they have such massive rushing upside. But typically in best ball, like, if I draft Christian Kirk, I'm going to bump up Trevor Lawrence. So it's really just, I'm letting those early round receivers kind of dictate what my quarterbacks look like. Because you want to draft as if you're right. You want to draft as if those early round receivers smash, and then their quarterbacks, do a relatively good job of getting them the ball, and they score fantasy points right along with them.
And so true. So true right there. And it's, gosh, I did do one, I'm kind of curious how this team's going to shake out. I had, Mahomes fall, I didn't have Kelsey. And Rashee Rice was already off the board. And Mahomes dropped like a round later than he should have. And I didn't have a quarterback. I'm like, what the hell? Why not?
Yeah,
and
when that happens, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had Joe Burrow fall almost 2 rounds. He went from like 80. He was like, I got him at almost like pick 97. And I didn't have Jamar. I'm like, what the Jamar Chase, Jamar Chase drafter, what are you thinking? So I'm like, what the hell? I'm draft these 2, and then I'm just going to load up have fun and see what that I mean, I think it was a Pomeranian draft. So that was something to have a little fun with. But yeah, that one's that I'm going to be curious how that one does. But do you like 2 or 3 QBs?
It depends. So if I draft like Josh Allen in the 4th, I'll just try to stick to 2, like 99% of the time. I mean, it would have to be like I screwed up and drafted the same buy as Josh Allen to draft a 3rd quarterback. But like I said, if I draft like, I don't know, let's say Christian Kirk early, like George Pickens, kind of don't have any great stack options, then I'll go to like, 3 quarterbacks with, Lawrence and Tua and those kind of guys. But typically like on underdog, if you have 0 quarterbacks through 9 rounds, like you should absolutely take 3, like by the advance rate metrics, like going into the playoffs. So your advance rate over expectation going into week 15, just to win your league to get there. If you have 3 in that scenario is definitely beneficial than 2. But yeah, like I said, it kind of just depends. You want to draft as if you're right. Draft as if like if you're taking Lamar early, he's your guy. He's a stud. Just get a QB2 late and be done with it.
Yeah, and he did close the season well, and he's got that crazy Week 17 game against in Houston.
Yeah,
that's gonna be fun. I love it that it's in Houston this time. So that should be a blast.
Yeah, indoors. It's gonna be one of the most like stacked games for best ball tournaments. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm really keeping an eye on kind of like teams that are indoors this year, because I feel like we got better quarterbacks that are playing indoors now. Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud.
A fun one is Jared Goff. Jared Goff is indoors for 14 of his 17 games this year, but 2 of them are in the fantasy playoffs at Green Bay and at San Francisco. So, he gets a bunch of indoor games, but unfortunately 2 of them are in most important weeks during fantasy football.
But then again, you know, he played in San Francisco in the NFC Championship, and he lit it up because it's nice weather. So
he had a couple of good games on the road last year. I think he had a good game against the Bucks too. So yeah, maybe it's a little bit of small sample stuff with his home road splits, but yeah, quarterback on underdog, like I said, really is like, you know, if I draft Amon-Ra, hell yeah, I want Jared Goff.
Yes,
way, you know, ahead of ADP. You know, you just want to stack up those two, and you know, when Amon-Ra goes for 25, hopefully you get 20 out of Goff, and you know that's a pretty good game from like a statue quarterback like him.
Yeah, I mean, heck, you could get him and Brock Purdy fairly cheap, and you just get that game, and then who knows, get Bryce Young later or something like that, or Russell Wilson, and see what happens there. Because you know, if Russ is still starting at that point, you never know. But he's got Kansas City week 17. That's gonna be fun. That he's gonna have to put up some points there.
I think I like Justin Fields a little more than Russ, just for fantasy. I think Russ, there's like a 65% chance Russ is the starter all season. I just think Pittsburgh probably wins 8 or 9 games, and like they just keep playing Russ. But I don't know. I just think Fields has so much more upside for fantasy. Like Fields was really good for DJ Moore last year too, so it's not like I don't think he could feed George Pickens. And then also Fields, like, you know, he runs. I know he's not the best actual NFL quarterback, but how many of these like rushing quarterbacks are just like crushed for fantasy? Fields is one of them.
There is the part of me that's like, oh man, just let him figure it out with
he's their
with
project.
a stable coach. Yeah. So get him maybe for year 2 or something like that. So yeah, that could be fun. But yeah, and I'm not closing the door on Sam Darnold maybe figuring something out, but that's only after I've had a little bit of tequila. So
hey, Darnold likes his substances too, man. You see that picture of him that went viral, him passing to something around on the golf course to look like? Hey, man, he's down for a good time.
It's legal in a lot of states. It's illegal in a lot of states. Hey, you know what? Enjoy, man. So, one last yards created question. Are you looking back at the 2023 class? Have you gotten some confirmation on what ended up happening?
I actually have not even had a chance to go back and chart 2023 yet. Yeah, I've been so busy with best ball, and right after the draft, I got the big yards created article up, breaking down all the draft capital. So I was actually going to plan on doing that like maybe 2 weeks from now. I think things are going to calm down. I'll get some free time, probably around the 4th, and then just chart for a couple weeks and see how much I can do. But I'm really excited to look at that class with a fresh set of eyes too, and watch Bijan, because Bijan, I love watching Bijan just coming out, but I will always find an excuse to watch Bijan.
Oh man, him, Gibbs should be fun, and I'm going to be very curious with Achane. So what he looks like.
I was on record saying I liked Achane more than Isaiah Spiller when they were together at Texas A&M. So I didn't chart Achane at that time, but dude, he was just like a little rocket. I did not think he would do what he did that last season, though. That was absolutely absurd. I think he could break fantasy this year, man. I think Achane could truly break fantasy, like even on like a 50% snap share. Like he does not need to have bell cow usage to break fantasy.
No, he with 150, 175 carries, and if they just increase his targets, he could be a Kamara. They could be like prime Kamara, you know, those first 3 years.
I think better than Kamara efficiency wise.
Oh man,
because that offense, Miami's offense is just better. I mean, it's just a better version of what, and that's not a slight to say against Kamara. It's just this offense that McDaniels built is just perfect for Achane, Mostert. Now they got Jaylen Wright too, who I loved. I love Jaylen Wright, man.
We're going to talk about him in a sec. Well, you know what? Let's jump in. Let's start with him. Let's start with him because I was going to start with someone else, but let's go into the yards created, guys. For 2024, Jaylen Wright. You love. I mean, is there a guy who fits the prototype better for the Miami offense than him? Gosh, I mean,
I think in terms of fit, this was the best fit of the entire class. I mean, Jaylen Wright, man, like came from a very contrived offense at Tennessee. Obviously, Volunteers heavy spread. They run a bunch weird formations, just basically trying to spread the defense and spread the DBs and linebackers out. And, you could nitpick Wright and say, hey, he ran in a weird offense where he didn't really face a lot of stacked boxes. But the bottom line is, like, when he got into open space, he was one of the most elusive players in this class. I mean, 5.4 yards created per carry, 80th percentile all time. He was really, really strong in missed tackles forced in this class. Again, though, I mean, he got really, really good blocking just from the nature of this offense and kind of like how it was designed to get him into space. But guess what? If there's one coach in the NFL that can get a player into space and utilize his speed and after contact ability, it's McDaniel. And they just do, I mean, McDaniel just did so much fun stuff adding on to what was already a great rushing offense just coming from the Shanahan system. He just added his own little flavors to it. And they use a lot more man blocking, just kind of getting players off of, like, kind of traditional, like almost like toss type plays. Jaylen Wright is going to shred, absolutely shred on those types of plays. The problem, obviously, for fantasy this year, Jorge, is he's blocked by Achane and Raheem Mostert, who refuses to age, even though he's dealt with so many injuries throughout his career. But Mostert was awesome last year, and I don't envision him really slowing down. Like, he's old, but he doesn't have the touches on his odometer like Zeke does.
Right.
So he's yes, he's well into his 30s. Yes, he's well over the age curve. There's massive risk, but it's all priced in with Mostert. So Wright has like just ginormous contingent upside. If you're doing a redraft league this early, like on ESPN or Yahoo, take Wright as your like second, maybe last round pick, stash him on your bench. And best ball, he's going to like the 150s, 160s. You can draft him as your RB5 or RB6. I don't think he makes a lot of sense on a team where you went like heavy on the Dolphins. Like basically, I've been taking a ton of Dolphins receivers, but Jaylen Wright is like an auto draft on those teams. If I have Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle early, I'm going to be drafting Jaylen Wright late because if Mostert gets hurt or Achane gets hurt, Wright is immediately going to have a role in that offense. So in best ball, it's a little bit of a different game. The only situation where I'm not drafting Jaylen Wright is like if I'm just like loaded at running back in that pocket from like round 7 to 10, and I just don't need a 5th or 6th one in that pocket. But Jaylen Wright's going to be one of my most drafted players this year. I just think he has just massive contingent upside. And in redraft, like I said, on ESPN, Yahoo, he will be my last round pick on all of my teams. And just you stash him on your bench. And if Achane or Mostert gets hurt early in the season, you see what happens. See if Jaylen Wright can ball out in this offense because he's got the talent to do it. It's just, he needs the opportunity. And if Mostert falls off the age curve or Achane can't stay healthy again, he'll have a role.
And Mostert did miss the final 2 weeks of the fantasy playoffs. So that is one thing, and lower leg injuries and have been his kryptonite in his career. So it is one of those things. I mean, Jaylen Wright could be that right answer.
It just feels like a massive, like you can take this massive home run swing at 150 ADP, and if it misses, guess what? Fine. You know who else is going to miss in that range is like a lot of those receivers. I like Marvin Mims, but like Marvin, you're drafting Marvin Mims in 165, 150 to 165 ADP. Like, those guys are going to bust as well. So to me, it's just like a huge, huge home run swing on this great offense with a highly talented player.
No, I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. No, I think it's yeah. And it could be at the best time of the season for you. So if it just so happens that things break right, and you never know. You're right. You mentioned that Mostert could really realize, that time may have finally come from, not from an injury standpoint, but just from a time standpoint. And it's time for the kid to take over. So yeah, he was one of my favorites too. He ran a little upright, but still, God, so fast and so fun to watch, man. I know another guy that you really like, Trey Benson, who you I love that you gave him the comp to a Jacksonville Jaguar, to Travis Etienne, your team, but going to Arizona. Could this be another great pick for playing behind a guy who has an extensive injury history in James Conner?
Yeah, Benson has massive upside. I mean, just humongous upside in this offense. As you alluded to, Conner, as good as he was last year, I love James Conner for fantasy last year, and he was one of the most efficient running backs in the league last year. However, like you said, he's always liable to miss 2 or 3 games, and Benson can maybe take over the starting job after that this season. There's also a chance that Benson just straight up outplays Connor because he's that damn good. Benson didn't have like the crazy yards created figures like Jaylen Wright and Marshawn Lloyd did, but really strong 4.57 yards created per attempt. You tied Jaylen Wright in terms of missed tackles forced per carry in this class. And yeah, I gave him a Travis Etienne comp, and just the way they run, their run styles are very similar. They're kind of like, one cut slasher, almost kind of like throwback style type guys that, Etienne has, I think, maybe a little bit better long speed, but Benson has a little bit better contact balance. I think that's going to allow him to be a significant volume carry back in the NFL. So like I said, if Connor is to go down at some point this season, Benson is going to be, I think, one of the players you might want or need to have late in the year. The problem is like, this might just be a really good 1A, 1B. And maybe it's one of those things where Connor, if he's not the guy getting 18, 19, 20 carries a game, and they give him only 12 to 13, they let him, have somebody basically be a running mate with him. It might keep him healthy for the full season. The tricky thing is, Jorge, like in best ball, they're both priced relatively around the same. Connor goes before Benson, but they go in a pretty tight pocket. I have Benson ahead of Connor just because I think he's like more likely to be the player that you need on your team late in the season in best ball. But there's certainly paths where Connor is completely fine RB2. If you just need a floor, but Benson to me is like, he's the clear upside play here.
No, I agree. And actually, yeah, and somebody asked me for a wild prediction, one of 5 wild predictions. And I said Trey Benson was going to be a league winner, he was going to take over the backfield by around week 10. And then, that week 17 against the Rams, which I think is definitely one of the games that I'm really, really targeting a lot. That could be a video game. I think yeah, he could smash because the Rams just lost Aaron Donald. How do you just don't replace that. So yeah, I think Benson's got really, really good upside. I love that call. And the next one I want to talk about, you talked about Bijan a little bit. Jonathon Brooks was his Jonathan. See, everybody, I spelled it with an O-N. This is correct how his name is spelled. So even though Google Docs wants me to spell it a different way, but Jonathon Brooks, I think you mentioned when maybe may have been if not your favorite, one of your favorites. But there's that knee injury. So I want to see how that kind of like factored in, considering the fact that he may have landed in a great spot.
He did land in a great spot. He landed in terms of opportunity, the best spot in the class, just like immediately come out and, basically be what we want for fantasy and just get a ton of volume. But film wise, Brooks was 1A or 1B with Trey Benson with me. You could really pre-draft. I basically had them like interchangeable. I've now got Brooks at 1 and then Benson at 2. And it's simply just because of that opportunity. I think, long term, Dave Canales is such a great coach for the Panthers. Obviously, Bryce Young, to me, is a way bigger question mark than Brooks's knee. Edwin kind of cleared it up on a show I did with them. You guys Brooks extensively, and he's basically like, they're going to play it safe with him, but he should be completely fine by the middle of the season. And all of this is priced in right now for Brooks. He's going in the 80s on underdog. I think he's going to go a little bit earlier on ESPN and Yahoo and redraft leagues. But man, I love Jonathon Brooks. He's going to be a highly drafted player when it's all said and done here. I just think there's just massive upside. You first look at the draft capital, right? Like, he goes early in the second round as a top 50 pick. I went back and looked. Among the 14 previous top 50 overall selections, 9 have finished as a top 20 scorer by fantasy points per game as a rookie. That's really, really strong. On average, these players average like 16 opportunities per game. That's attempts plus targets. I just think Brooks is just like kind of pretty much set up perfectly for a bell cow role when it matters most, like kind of like a la Breece Hall last year, weeks 10 to 17. And it's like, okay, if you build your team, your fantasy team the right way and like have a couple players that you can fill in early in the season, and Jonathon Brooks is like that high ceiling player you need late in the year. I think Brooks is just such a great pick at ADP right now. And if we start getting like positive reports, starting in training camp, his ADP is just going to skyrocket. I think he's kind of at his floor right now because I think everybody kind of knows if he's going to start a little bit slow. But if, like I said, the reports start getting a little better, his ADP is going to skyrocket. Player is just he's just so good, man. I think I said in my article, I'm not sure if I did, but I was like, I probably said in a pod where it's like you could drop him in like all 32 teams and he'd probably be good.
Yeah.
All of them. And that's truly a high compliment because I don't think you could say the same for Jaylen Wright or Trey Benson. Like those two players, I love them, but they don't have the vision and the consistent great feet that Jonathon Brooks had. I mean, Brooks just does not make bad plays. Very rarely does he go backwards and make a bad play or make a bad read. Benson and Wright, they have great juice, highly creative players, but they're not on that level that Jonathon Brooks is.
And you also pointed out he's also got he had your best pass protection grade, which is going to get him on the field when he's out there.
Yeah, he's just got massive bell cow potential. He's not like Rachaad White at all. He's a significantly better version of Rachaad White. But if he gets a Rachaad White type role in this offense where he's on the field over 60% of the snaps in every single game, and he gets a bell cow usage in terms of the passing down work, like you said, he's a great pass protector. Scored as like one of the best pass protectors all time in my database. Man, the runway is huge with him. I fear the biggest fear I have is that Bryce Young is, a bust. But I think that's, they're trying, man. They got Deontay, they got Xavier Legette. They're trying to get in some dudes. They've improved the interior offensive line with Robert Hunt, but we'll see with Bryce. Canales has worked his magic with Mayfield and Geno, so we'll see.
I mean, yeah, the Geno resurrection was incredible. So I'd love to see him do the same because we need quarterbacks. We need quarterbacks, please. So and I'd hate to see someone who had was number one upside. I'd hate to have him be one of those guys that gets go back to Michael Jordan and Sam Bowie. Sam Bowie went number 2, Michael Jordan went number 3, and heard about it for the rest of his career. So, I mean, you don't want to, I don't want to see Bryce Young keep hearing about how CJ Stroud got picked after him. But no, and yeah, Jonathon Brooks, great. But I know Edwin, you guys talked about it. He and I talked about it, training, it could be slow going. I kind of did his timeline was very similar to Todd Gurley's coming out of Georgia and going to the Rams. And Gurley missed the first 3 games and then had kind of like a limited role in the 4th. But yeah, I mean that second half of the season could be he could take that backfield over, and it could, and at like you mentioned, Breece Hall, like at the most important time in the season. I'm going to be recommending to people to have a plan for. Don't draft him as the number 1 running back. Yeah. That would be irresponsible. Maybe the number 2, but have a decent number 3 to play early in the season if you have to. So for redraft, I think he's kind of priced right in underdog to be like that 2nd or 3rd running back taken in there. So that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah, and the way, real quick, just on underdog this year, the way things are priced, man, like you don't have to sacrifice like your 7th round pick to get a runner in front of Brooks. You can find players like Devin Singletary who have just fine floors. You can get a guaranteed 10 or 12 points out of them, and you can take those players a round or 2 later than Brooks, and you've got your guy right there to cover for Jonathon Brooks early in the season.
Right. No,
there's a ton of players like that. I love the ADP setup for running backs this year on Underdog. It's made it so easy to set up really, really fun running back rooms at cost.
No, it's good. It is fun. I mean, I'm still going. I'm trying to go hero, but I mean, sometimes those are. I mean, if Tyreek Hill or Jamar Chase falls in the right spot, it's hard to pass them by or something like that. So, okay. Well, one guy who I know was a fun guy for you to chart, even though he didn't have a lot of opportunities. So, with low hundreds in carries, was Marshawn Lloyd out here in my backyard at USC. Definitely fun. I know he's got some pimples on him that some people don't like. What did you love the most about him, and kind of where is the concern, especially considering Josh Jacobs is that man and
Right.
signed a contract?
Yeah, well, Jacobs just got that bag, man,
Yeah.
huge bag. But it's basically like a series of 1-year deals for Jacobs. So I fully expect him to be like the 1A in this backfield. But if we know one thing about LaFleur, it's that he loves running back by committees. He basically had Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams split carries. Then he had Jones and Dillon split carries. So I do think this will be some sort of committee. Lloyd is just an absolute baller. 5.6 yards created per carry, led the class, also led the class in missed tackles forced per carry. Like you mentioned, the one big knock against him is that he never really carried the ball with like a ton of volume, but also it was just their offense. USC was very pass heavy, obviously with Caleb Williams. They're very RPO heavy. That's Cliff Kingsbury's thing. At the end of the day, though, when Lloyd did get the ball, I mean, he was such a stud. He had some, negative plays where he would kind of, be looking for the home run or, end up taking a little bit of a loss. But like, he is such an exceptional player in the second level. There's definitely some hidden upside with Lloyd in the passing game. I just think he's such a sick player in the open field. They just didn't really use him too much as a receiver. But I think LaFleur is going to try to use him in that aspect of his game, whereas Jacobs will probably be like the AJ Dillon type, like early down goal line guy. And then obviously, Lloyd, I think has a role. It's not like Jaylen Wright. I don't think Jaylen Wright week 1 will have much of a role. Lloyd will. I think he's going to, at worst be the spell for Jacobs. And then at best, he'll, be, maybe the 1B in timeshare. And of course, if Jacobs gets hurt or anything happens to him, Lloyd just has massive contingent upside. So
in that offense,
Lloyd and Jaylen Wright are going to be two of my most highly drafted players this year. Jonathon Brooks, when he was going in like the 90s on Underdog back in May, I was hammering that. I think you're right. He's starting to get priced. Jonathon Brooks, that is, he's starting to get priced right. Marshawn Lloyd, he's starting to come up a little bit, but man, I think he's too cheap in the 140s.
Yeah, he feels like a bargain. It's funny. Last week I sat down with Matt, our compadre Matt Harmon, on the Yahoo podcast, talking about we're trying to find this year's David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, that backfield that could have 2 contributors, and we didn't have Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd because it was the idea was that Jacobs would really take the lead role, but there were a lot of comments and it made me kind of relook at that. And now talking to you, it has me thinking that Lloyd could be getting about double-digit touches per week that could could have some smash plays, because that offense is good. The offensive line is good. God, it's oof. And he's a big guy. So, but you do have concerns in pass pro a little bit. He's going to have to improve there, right?
Yeah, Lloyd was not the best pass protector, but I always say this, like rookies, it's very rare to have like a Jonathon Brooks type player where like consistently they were great in pass protection, and it's very rare for that to happen. So, it's something that's very coachable. And like I said, I just think Lloyd has hidden upside as a receiver.
No, I love it. So this next one, a little bit interesting guy, Blake Corum, gets drafted by the Rams, and we all saw Kyren Williams just kind of like be a league winner last year. He was one of the best fab pickups or waiver wire pickups after week 1 last year. And just when he was on the field, he was electric. But injuries were an issue. And Blake Corum kind of gives me kind of a little bit of the way the Rams are doing, kind of something that you talked about a couple years ago, where talking about how starting pitchers in baseball and running backs are similar, how maybe they're dialing back a little bit to try and keep them healthy. Could that be the case here, where Corum gets just enough to kind of keep Kyren Williams on the field?
I think that's what they envision. It's just whether or not McVay actually does it, because Sean McVay just loves bell cows, man. Like, you just go through his history. Like, he loves having that guy who stays on the field, and he doesn't have to worry about, basically anything. He doesn't have to worry about protection. He doesn't have to worry about, If the guy is, okay in this run scheme, if he can trust you fully in all aspects of the game, like he just wants you out there, because then he doesn't have to worry so much about, giving tells based on who's on the field. Blake Corum, to me, was a massive disappointment. 3.35 yards created per carry. It's in the 3rd percentile in my database since 2016. Not great. He also was not that elusive. I do chart missed tackles a little bit differently than some other people do. I chart, by speed. If you basically, juke a defender out of his shoes and you're not touched, I'll give you, a missed tackle for that. Or if you run past somebody without getting touched. Corum was just not very elusive. 2nd worst mark in this class in missed tackles forced per carry. The great thing about Corum, though, is that he is never going to lose yards. Like, he is always going to get what's blocked. And I think that's the biggest thing that popped on tape, is like Michigan just had this great run scheme and Corum was so good at always getting what's blocked. But when he gets into that second level, I just don't know if he is the athlete of, Marshawn Lloyd, Jaylen Wright, Trey Benson, Jonathon Brooks' caliber. That just did not show up in yards created. The great thing is he's in a great offense again. Sean McVay is one of the best coaches of all time. He's one of the best run schemers of all time. And, to me, Kyron just was awesome last season. I don't think Kyron was, ironically, we thought Kyron Williams, when he was coming out, we thought he was going to be this great, like, player on pass downs, like kind of maybe like a theoretic type player, but he's actually been the opposite. He's been a really good runner and then not awesome on passing downs. Corum, to me, the pick was just like, hey, we have nothing behind Kyron. And if he gets hurt, we're screwed at running back. We don't want to, no offense, but we don't want to be playing, just like Ronnie Rivers again or anything like that. So I think that was more so just like, okay, Corum's high on our board. He's here in the middle of the 3rd round. We need a good backup to Kyron, because the Rams are a Super Bowl team. I think Matt Stafford was playing at a Super Bowl level, at the closeout last season. Their defense is not a Super Bowl defense, though. Their offense is going to put up some Super Bowl worthy points, but their defense this season is going to be a big problem. To me, Corum is like at best going to get 30% of the work behind Kyron, and he's more so just like a contingent. Basically, I think Blake Corum's the best true handcuff in fantasy football this season.
Did he kind of, when he got to the bowl games, was he better there? Because that was about a year post meniscus surgery. Did he seem better?
What I was most excited about, honestly, is going back and watching Corum, because I've got 2022 tape on him. I'm going to rewatch him this summer too, and just see before the injury and after the injury. I'm going to chart him just to see if there's any difference. Because I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, I've already looked at them. They're better. But just in terms of yards created, to getting in there and watching on a play-by-play basis, be interesting to see. I didn't see anything, definitively by the end of the year to say, he had more juice. I will say he did test at the combine okay. Like, he's never going to be the fastest player on the field, but he did the 3-cone drill and it was fine. So, I just don't think Corum is ever going to be a high level athlete, but in this offense, he doesn't need to be. Kyron Williams isn't a high level athlete either. He just was really good at picking up what was blocked. And I think Kyron's a better runner than Corum, but if Corum were, to start games and Kyron misses time with another foot issue or ankle issue, like, Corum's going to be at worst an RB2 for fantasy.
Oh man. Well, I mean
I can be as low on him as I am. I have him at 5 in my rankings, in my rookie rankings, and I still he's still the best handcuff in fantasy football right now, like straight up handcuff. No doubt about it.
It's all that landing spot, like what you like, that environment that he's in, that ecosystem that he's going into, and it could be good, and he's gonna find himself on the field because he is good in pass protection. So, I think he was right behind Jonathon Brooks, right, on your charting
in terms of pass protection.
Yeah.
Corum was a very good pass protector. He can be a kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, bell cow type guy for sure.
No, well, let's see. All right, so those are the guys we're going to spend a lot of time on, but maybe some quick hits on some guys. Ray Davis, great story. Kind of like, shorter, kind of like a bigger back. but he's got James Cook in front of him. Is that really just kind of like the reality for him?
Yeah, and James Cook has Josh Allen stealing goal line carries from him, so it's kind of like
Very
I
true.
don't know, it's like a weird a weird triangle going on there. I think Ray Davis is probably going to end up stealing some goal line carries from James Cook too. But yeah, Cook's set up so well for just an awesome role in between the 20s at least. Ray Davis, I liked him a little bit more than I thought I would. Obviously, he's an older player. He had to transfer a couple times because of the new rules with the transfer portal. So he played in his 5th year at Kentucky, got a big time role. He was fine. Rated out in the middle of class in yards created per attempt and missed tackles forced per carry. I think he's a little bit better of a receiver than he got credit for. So there's a little bit of a 3-down role potential if Cook were to get hurt. I don't think he's necessarily the handcuff. Like, we know Blake Corum's the handcuff 100%
Right.
to Kyron, because Josh Allen gets so many goal line carries and he's their goal line back. It's harder to say that Ray Davis is like a true handcuff to Cook, but they just don't have anything else behind him. They brought in Ty Johnson. He's going to be their 3rd guy in rotation. They let Nyheim Hines go. So I think Ray Davis has a fine opportunity to be like their backup, but he's strictly Cook's backup. I don't think Cook's not a running back that should get like high volume of carries like Jonathon Brooks can or somebody like that. So maybe Ray Davis has some spell potential, but I like Davis a little bit, but yeah, man, it's a trick. Bills running backs is just like a vat of, a money throwing pit, basically. You throw your money into what you think is going to be a good running back and a good offense, and Josh Allen ends up with 2 touchdowns on the ground.
Yep, exactly. And he's going to take those goal line carries. Well, you talk about throwing money into a pit. Audric Estime, is just in is a really, really crowded running back room.
Yeah,
could he emerge at some point?
Yeah, Broncos have Javonte, Samaje Perine, Jaleel McLaughlin, and now Audric Estime.
Right.
They also brought in Blake Watson, who I didn't chart, but Scott liked analytically coming out of the draft. They brought him in as a UDFA. So they're just having a big competition. I liked Estime a little bit. He was kind of a throwback in the sense of just like a big, bulkier runner who doesn't have a whole lot of juice, but he also is just like actually uses his power to his advantage, unlike Braylon Allen. 4.6 yards created per attempt, 5th best in the class for Estime. So against the backdrop of this class, especially on the volume he got, I liked Estime a little more than I thought I would. We were sitting here talking about how weird, Jaylen Wright's offense was. We were talking about how Marshawn Lloyd basically ran an RPO like every other play. Notre Dame actually ran like a traditional offense. So we had Estime under center. Unlike most teams or most guys coming out of college, Estime actually has a little bit of experience running under center. And this offense, that's what Sean Payton likes to do. He likes to get up under center, run the ball. I think Estime has a clearer path to touches year one than most people might think. I mean, Javonte Williams, as much as I loved him coming out, he was just not the same player last year. They bring in all this competition like we talked about. Jaleel McLaughlin gets a little bit of a role all season last year. Samaje Perine was involved. It's going to be really interesting to see what this rotation looks like. The problem I'm having, and it's kind of the same thing for fantasy, is we're talking about with Bryce Young and Jonathon Brooks. It's like, what is the highest range of outcomes for this Broncos offense this year? Because you look at the projections, by look ahead lines, they're like, the worst offense in the NFL, not favored in any games late all season. One of 2 teams, along with the Panthers, not favored all season. So it's tricky. I like Estime a little bit. I like his profile a little more than I thought it would, kind of like Ray Davis. But man, it's just this offense might be pretty gross, and a pretty gross running back rotation with it.
Yeah, that one's gonna be tough. Yeah. Well, back to my backyard, Kimani Vidal landing. On the surface, it looks like Gus Edwards is already having some issues with injuries, and he's got an ACL in his background. J.K. Dobbins, ACL and Achilles. Those are the guys in front of him. I mean, could considering the fact that this is a Harbaugh offense that likes to run, is he a guy that, could see the field at some point?
Might be. I mean, Gus Edwards was dealing apparently with some sort of like injury that apparently won't hold him out for training camp. But he's 29 now. J.K. Dobbins has a very, very sketchy injury, to say the least. In terms of yards created, Vidal was just fine. Right out in the middle of the class in yards created per carry. If you watch a couple of games, you'll see very quickly he's not like laterally elusive, but he's got pretty good burst and speed. He's got really good leg drive, and I think he's kind of a perfect fit for this offense where he's not going to have to be a laterally elusive player. They're just going to get him north-south. He's also, he was good in pass protection, but wasn't used much as a receiver. As far as 6th-round picks go, like in fantasy, they're we were talking about money pits. How many 4th-round rookie picks in Dynasty have you thrown away on a 6th-round running back? I know I definitely have. However, as far as opportunity goes, Jorge, like this is about as good as you can get for a 6th-round running back. I wasn't too overly impressed with Vidal for yards created, but at the end of the day, fantasy is all about opportunity, and he's got. I think Gus Edwards is pretty much going to be the 1A as long as he's healthy all year. But, Vidal has a pretty good opportunity to get a decent role here as a rookie.
I can already tell you, I may have to send you a video of this from our Familia draft. My primo Ricky, who's a dyed-in-the-wool Charger fan, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to videotape him drafting Kimani Vidal late in the draft and make the proclamation that he's Isaiah Pacheco 2.0. So he's going to say, I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. So primo Ricky, I know that you're on the watch for that. You're on the clock for that one. So that one's. But yeah, you're right. I was kind of excited then I read what you said about 6th-round running backs, the hit rate being there, and I'm like, yeah. That's reality, right?
Dude, it's almost better to be a UDFA, like somebody who's undrafted. Like seriously, in terms of hit rate, I mean, it's like almost identical. Like 6th-round rookies and undrafted players have like virtually the same hit rate, and it's less than 10%.
And I think you have the sexier picks that, Austin Eckler at a James Robinson his rookie year, and Philip Lindsay his rookie year. So you got those kind of guys that have come out. So, who as UDFAs, but I'm going to group these next guys together. Bucky Irving, Will Shipley, Isaac Guerendo, and Braylon Allen. Are they pretty much backups?
I think so. Yeah, I mean,
all I could see.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody got a backup running back in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round of the draft this year. With Shipley, really, Saquon's the guy there for at least the next 2 years. If Saquon gets hurt, then we can have the conversation of whether or not it's going to be Shipley or Ken Gainwell this year. That's just going to come down to training camp. I think Shipley beats him out, but really, they're kind of the same player in the way they win. They're good and they're good at everything, but not great at any one thing, and they're not bad at one thing, but they're just basically kind of the same player, mirror images of the same player, and Shipley and Gainwell. Guerendo is going to have to beat out Kyle Shanahan's boy Elijah Mitchell. I mean, Mitchell, he's got like bionic knees at this point, poor guy. But Mitchell, every time he plays, he looks great. He looks explosive. So Guerendo is a Shanahan back through and through, coming from his zone system. Obviously, he's got the home run speed, but he's going to have to beat out Mitchell. And he's going to have to beat out Jordan Mason. I think the Niners might trade one of these guys for like a 6th-round pick. And then Bucky Irving, obviously undersized, very, very poor combine. However, Jorge, I think there's something there. I think he's okay. Yards created wasn't great, but he's kind of elusive. 5th best in the class in terms of missed tackles forced per attempt. Rachaad White was not great as a runner last year. Like he got a ton of volume, but he was at the bottom of the league in terms of yards after contact and missed tackles forced per carry last season. Obviously now he's losing Dave Canales, who's a great coach. So to me, I think White at best, Bucky Irving is at best a really strong-ish handcuff to Rachaad White, but I think all these guys, Kimani Vidal, Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy, Will Shipley, all these guys really need injuries to the starter in front of them this year to be fantasy relevant.
No, I think so, man. Oh man. Well, this has been awesome. This has been awesome. Well, I want to before we close, I want to just kind of like I want to have a little baseball dessert. So, we've always loved talking a little baseball. Uh, I know you still, keep an eye on the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are in Colorado right now. Please keep an eye on if there's a missile coming out of there off of Shohei Ohtani's bat. But uh, how, what have you had most fun with baseball this year? Keeping an eye on baseball this year, even though offense is down.
Yeah, I think actually that's it. Pitching is up.
Yeah.
I was a pitcher in high school. I just love watching good pitching. These guys it's like every guy out of the bullpen now throws 96 and
Oh
has a
God.
wicked slider. Sinkers are back. Guys are just trying to get ground balls again. I don't know. I'm a pitching nerd, so it's been kind of cool to see, these guys have an edge over these hitters who are, basically just looking for home runs. But I don't know, man. The NL, if you've looked at the standings, it's just like a big glut at the bottom of the standings this
Yeah,
year.
exactly.
It's just really competitive in the NL. So that's been fun to watch too.
It is. It is. I mean, I know the Phillies and the Dodgers both got a little bit of leads, but they've gotten dinged up. You know what? I'll tell you this. You talk about pitching being up, even though we've had some injuries. I think my favorite pitcher to watch this year has been Tyler Glass. Now, just the power and just
He's
his breaking
effortless.
stuff. Oh, he just
Yeah.
looks. I'm just I paid big money for him in my number one fantasy league, and I just every time I'm just kind of like, okay, get him out of 100 pitches, get him out of there. But he's so fun watching him get to those 100 pitches. Him, I got some guys Cole Reagan's over with Kansas City has been fun. To Scooble at Detroit, and the guys over at Joe Dolan's guys over in Philly, Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola have just been ballers this year.
Yeah,
So
they've been horses, absolute horses. Scooball, man, he might have the nastiest stuff in the bigs right now, and that's truly saying something. He's just nasty.
102 from the left side, he was throwing it the other day.
Yeah, that's
That's
wicked.
that's ridiculous. That's like what you hear legendary stuff coming out of Koufax.
Yeah.
And gosh, I mean yeah, he's front runner for the Cy Young. But yeah, it's so fun. But yeah, now I just want to ask you about watching Shohei hit. How much fun has that been watching that happen, even in highlights?
I think we were texting about this like maybe a couple months ago. I was like,
Yes.
it's gonna be interesting to see what Shohei does when he doesn't have to train for pitching. And this has been the result. I mean, it's just like he's the best hitter in baseball. Like you could already make the argument he was. It's either him or Soto right now, right? Like,
Oh
I mean,
man.
Soto's having a legendary season. He's just completely elevated that offense. But yeah, Shohei is he's a beast, man. He's unbelievable, and the ball just jumps off his bat. It's crazy.
It's so fun, and it looks so effortless. I think we were talking about it, like, it just the ball sounds it's so effortless, but it's so loud coming off his bat. It's so fun. Did you watch by the way, did you watch the Yankees Red Sox on Sunday?
Yeah, well, I
When
watched
when
on Sunday. I did watch a little bit of the series during the week, though. Yeah.
Oh, they mic'd up Soto,
Oh
for
man,
a half an inning, and
nice.
one of my favorite moments of the season where a fan, tweeted in a question over who hit the ball harder between Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge, and Giancarlo Stanton, and then he just kind of like he's kind of going through, and Soto's my favorite player,
Yeah,
my favorite non-Dodger because he's so cool. Everything he does is cool. So he's kind of
true.
talking, he's kind of hemming and hawing, and then all of a sudden the ball gets hit to him. He's now making a running catch. As he's making the running catch, he goes, "It was definitely Bryce Harper." It was catch for the last out of the inning, and then he just kind of flips the ball into the crowd. It's just like, damn, man,
He's the
that's
man.
just, it's just
He's too smooth.
oh, he's so smooth, and that little shuffle. I'm glad he's still at the beginning of his career because I want to see that for the next 15 years because we need more of that in
Well,
baseball.
the Yankees gonna pay him? Are they gonna? They've been pay. I mean, they pay everybody. Why wouldn't they pay Soto? I don't get that one. Why wouldn't they go ahead and make this official now?
It's because Scott Boras is his agent, and Scott Boras, if
Yeah.
he's got a guy
Oh,
in his walk year, he's going to take him to free agency. But
yeah.
honestly, he's going to position it between the two New York teams, Yankees and Mets. Just like open up the wallets, guys. Who's gonna,
Yeah.
whoever's got one more dollar, let's go. So
Yeah.
that,
Well, we know Scott Boras has just been great for baseball. So this is another great example.
oh,
You're not wrong though. It's just, why, why not? Why would you not want to just you got Judge lock
yeah.
down Soto, and move Judge to first so he's not playing the outfield every day, so you can have a long career and be done with it. Slap Soto and Wright. I don't get it, but Yankees are going to go on a run, and I mean they already are first team to 50. So that's definitely been my least favorite thing about this season.
Oh man, Yankees and Orioles is going to be a fun pennant race there. It's gonna be a fun pennant race.
Honestly, MLB is more fun when the Yankees are good.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. All day long. And
We're doing without Garrett Cole too.
Yeah, how crazy is that? Talking about pitching, I want to see. I want to see him back. Yeah, let's go. Dodgers, Yankees in the World Series. Even though your old pitching coach might have something to say about it with Corbin Burns and his gang.
Yeah, they've got G-Rod healthy too. I think Bradish is going back on the IL, but man, the O's just one of the. I think they're going to write. They'll probably write a book about how they've done what they've done with their young guys. I mean, all homegrown, all of them are good. I mean, obviously they traded for Burns, but I mean, it's just the assortment of talent the Orioles have put together is just truly, truly remarkable.
And they've got a major league team at AAA.
Yeah, I know, dude. Right? It's crazy.
Those guys are sick. It's how good they are, and I'm just like, yeah, watch that. I could see some of those guys that are AAA that are kind of blocked getting traded, and one or two guys getting traded and beef up that pitching staff. I think it's going to be.
You think they go all in?
Oh, absolutely. With Burns,
they have to.
Yeah. With Burns, and you never know. I mean, Gunnar Henderson's he's going to be fighting it out with Soto for MVP, Soto and Judge for MVP. So that's going to be that. And so you don't have too many chances. And Rutschman, as young as he is, take your shots. Oh yeah, I want to see. Put all the chips in. Let's
go.
Fun. Oh man, last one, mi amigo. Let's did you take Edwin out for some good Colorado Denver tacos out there?
We haven't gotten tacos yet. We've gotten pizza. I think I turned him on to like maybe his favorite pizza place of all time, a place called Atomic Cowboy.
You've talked about that. I've heard you talk about that.
The place is awesome. Where else did we go? Oh, we got some Chinese hot pot. That place was really good.
Wow.
They bring out all the veggies and the meat and stuff. It's like family style. So we did that. Where else have we gone? I think we got sandwiches once from Subculture. But yeah, I mean, Denver's food scene is underrated. It's really underrated. Like there's some things out here that are I think on par. The more I've gone out and the more I've tried different things here, I think Denver's got one of the best like food scenes out west. Like Los Angeles and Atlanta, like those are just kind of in their own tier. But like Denver is really good.
Oh man, love it. Well, you know what? Okay,
you got to come out, man. We got to do.
This summer's tough. This summer's tough, but I gotta make it happen next summer for a long weekend. Get out and watch some games at Coors Field, and then just going to Blake Street and just have us a good time. So
sounds good.
Mi amigo, please. I know you got a lot of great stuff coming up. Pump away, please.
Yeah, we're calling it Best Ball Week at Fantasy Points this week. We have my underdog draft guide out. Also, Scott Barrett and Ryan Heath have put together positional like target articles for quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends. So we got all that coming out this week. So just a bunch of best ball content coming up, Fantasy Points, and obviously we're just gearing up for the season, man. We got about a 6-week stretch here, Jorge, where not much happens. So enjoy it, my friend, because training camps are coming in about 6 weeks. Get you ready for the fantasy season over at fantasypoints.com. As always, working on projections, getting everything ready for all the drafts that are going to happen in July and August.
Fantastic. Yeah, and you know what? That and Familia, whenever you get in, just go to the backlog. Just everything on there is just so it's going to be so much great information that's going to help you between now, but it's going to be helping you in August when you're doing your redraft, and now when you're doing your best ball drafts. So, such good stuff. Mi amigo, compadre. Muchas gracias, compadre Graham. So, thanks again. Make sure to follow him at Graham Barfield on Twitter. I'm at Jorge Martin 17. You're finding me. You've seen my stuff on Fantasy Points. I'm also on Yahoo, RotoWire, and Fantasy Pros. Yes, let's get out there and also just keep an eye on that. Make sure you're following Familia FFB on YouTube. Get in there, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Also, make sure you're following the Injury Prone podcast too. So Edwin and I are going to be recording a couple episodes coming for you guys. So going to get some good stuff for you. So otra vez, Graham, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias everybody for joining us. And remember, todos somos familia. Salud.